It's like the most high-stakes moment I'm going to have in my whole weekend is hitting that record button.
It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great. Like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this is the long-awaited spoiler cast for Marvel's Defenders TV series on Netflix.
Woo! Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
And that's exactly why Mike put his emphasis on TV. I caught that. I knew what you were doing there.
Well, when we were saying the opening, I thought like, oh, this would be cool if it was like accompanied by that kind of local news music when like the titles are swinging in and everything. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, maybe I'll make one of those noises. And the only thing I could think of was the what is that, the ESPN noise, the Sports Center noise?
Yeah, you made the ESPN, which is also owned by Disney, who owns Marvel, you go. So it all loops back around.
Swing it back around. They're all infested in our brains, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's... whatever. We're here talking about Defenders, Mike. You've done throw me off already, and we're not even a minute into
for
this.
A loop.
So, this is our spoiler cast for the Defenders. We finally waited for it. We've got 5 TV series leading up to this culmination. There will be spoilers about all those shows, probably, in this show as well. So if you've not seen any of them, well, you should probably do that. They're not that bad. So
and I guess following the Defenders, just to kind of round everything out, I believe our next series is Punisher. Which
right as of right now, no official date from Marvel, but I think November.
Yeah, and if you're subscribed to the podcast, you'll see our normal news episode this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about a Punisher teaser trailer, I believe, right?
Yes, we do. They did it. It's kind of like the end. They don't do end credit scenes on the Netflix shows. They kind of give you a trailer for the next show. So,
and I believe after Punisher, obviously all these dates are really loose. I think what's next after that? Is it Jessica Jones season 2?
So next year, rumored are 3 shows: Jessica Jones season 2, Luke Cage season 2, and Daredevil season 3.
Ooh,
so
that sounds like a pretty good year.
That sounds like a great year. My favorite thing is we went from getting 2 a year to now we're getting 3 a year, much like the movie realm. So any point in time we can sit down and probably watch a new Marvel cinematic property along the way. And we got something to talk about in our regular show as well. But
yeah, they spoil us, Chris. They spoil us.
They did. They spoil us, and we will spoil you in our spoiler cast. So. So The Defenders is an 8-episode series that launched on Netflix. It's not all the other TV shows were 13, so this is just 8. Mm-hmm. And it brings together the characters we've mentioned: Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, to take down what seems to be the long-running villain in the show, which is the Hand. I don't believe they popped up in Luke Cage's show, and I don't think they were too big in Jessica Jones. But the 2 guys who know karate definitely knew how to fight the Hand.
Yeah, if you know karate, you know the Hand.
Yes. And overall, I mean, just to kind of jump into it, Mike, here, my impressions are I had a pretty good time with this show. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it was very pointed. It's a standalone series. Like, you know, you got to watch them leading up to this, but it's a very self-contained story. And 8 episodes was so much easier to digest. Like, I felt I had, like, everything was used. There was no wasted time in this. It was very snappy. And I loved it.
Yeah, much more bingeable for sure at the 8-episode mark, similar to the Stranger Things episode number. So the episode number definitely did help it out.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a perfect show by any means. I'm not gonna say it's hard to not find some flaws in this, simply because as the Netflix shows went on, their quality kind of dipped down, and Mike will be very vocal about this with his Iron Fist review. But I do think that this is a uplift in quality from the last 2, specifically Luke Cage and Iron Fist in my book. So.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that. Unfortunately for me, The Defenders is a little bit more of a mixed bag. I think we do get some interesting moments with the characters. I really love it when the characters finally start meeting for the first time or start interacting with each other. They don't necessarily know. Or one of them is like following them down the street or something like that. So I appreciated those moments. Some of my favorite, characters are back in their kind of favorite positions of their hierarchy. So, you got Luke Cage. He's being funny and coy and being smooth again. You got Charlie Cox as Daredevil, who's basically being a badass like he always is. He looks so cool when he's fighting.
Trying not to be Daredevil the whole time.
Yes, trying not to be Daredevil, but he's always very logical, which I really appreciate, especially from Iron Fist, who is the most illogical, dumb character still in this show. And then you do have Jessica Jones, who's basically just being sassy all the time, which I really love. But when it comes down to the mixed bag, I feel like every element that you could talk about in a TV show just has like a sore thumb kind of sticking out for me, which is really unfortunate. But I think overall it's still effective. So it kind of falls in the middle of the pack for me if I had to rank these among all the shows. I think still my two favorites are season 1 of Daredevil, followed by season 1 of Jessica Jones. And then, obviously Iron Fist is there in the back. But I think The Defenders kind of falls in the middle, which I think would be okay if we were talking about, maybe a season 2 of a show or something like that. But, for me, this was supposed to be a culmination of all these characters coming together. The thing I kept building it up to in my head, which I guess was maybe unfortunate for myself, was like, the first time the Avengers came together. Mm-hmm. How cool was that when we finally built up to this team? And I felt like when we finally got them all together, it was cool. It was awesome kind of seeing them like interact, but I felt like we never really built up to anything grand or anything amazing. I guess just to jump right to the end real quick, we built up to this final fight scene underground, but there was really nothing special about it because almost an identical fight scene happened about halfway through the season in that Chinese restaurant. Obviously with less hand people, but I thought that fight was actually more interesting because they were in a more closed space in a restaurant. Each kind of crew, bad guy crew, was dressed a little differently and they had to fight them all uniquely. And actually Stick was added to that group too, so the ante was upped even more. So I felt like once we finally got to the end, there was really no payoff, which was really unfortunate because I was kind of hoping for those like snappy 8 episodes. I was like, okay, I would assume The Defenders has like a similar budget or maybe even more of a budget for this show. I was kind of hoping maybe for some special effects at the end, some sort of reveal.
So I'm going to go the other way. Like, this is not, like, you're comparing this very hardly to the movies. And I think, I don't think this has ever been done before. Has there been like 4 shows that meet together into one other show? I mean, in my mind, this is like a brand new experiment kind of thing. And just because it doesn't fire on all cylinders all the time, it doesn't make it, too much of a failure for me. Because
no, I wouldn't call it a failure.
But I think they've definitely, the last show we did see, Iron Fist, who was a martial artist, the immortal Iron Fist, who's supposed to know all the ways of fighting, didn't really fight a lot. And this time I think they gave us a lot of fighting. I don't know, not to make up for it because this show was done filming when Iron Fist came out. But I mean, I definitely see there's a lot of dark, very stagnant locations in this. Mm-hmm. But I think that, again, that's the realm of a TV show. You have people making TV shows making this series. But I do have to say, from a production point of view, the blocking in the scenes, the way they move the camera around people and set up a lot of those things, I believe it was, it had to have been, not the hallway fight scene, but probably I think one in the restaurant where they show everyone fighting at the same time in all these different locations was really interesting because you don't get to see that in a TV show normally.
Yeah, I really enjoyed, since you're talking about it, the very first episode, we had all of our characters very separated. I don't believe any of them actually met each other until the second episode.
I think, did the first one end with Daredevil saying, "I'm your lawyer" to Jessica Jones?
Possibly.
They all blend together. They all blend together. It's so seamless, like the way they told these stories.
It's really hard to kind of break them up. But in that very first episode, every character was lit very specifically with that color that they're. So every time you saw Charlie Cox or Daredevil, he was silhouetted by like red light, or he was in a red hallway or something like that. Jessica Jones, it was blues and purples. Luke Cage, all of the color correction and everything. And Harlem was very yellow and orange.
Yeah.
And then Iron Fist, when he was like down in a sewer or something like that, there's like green neon around him or something like that. So that was really cool. There's definitely some creative shots being set up for these characters. So there's definitely there's quality when it comes to this production. You know, we still are far away from something like the CW, where you're always seeing the same like street in Toronto, and they're always like just using like the same rented like box truck to put like RPGs in or something like that.
It felt, to me, and I definitely agree with it, it felt very like they put a lot of thought into the production. Like, yes, we need to make sure these are lit very well, specifically for the character. But I do think there was one transition they used quite a bit, like a subway style transition between scenes. Yeah. Worked great the first couple episodes when they were separate. When they were together at the end, I got really annoyed with it. Like, yes, we get it. They're around different parts of the city, but now they're not. Quit using this transition.
Yeah, I thought maybe the transition might evolve a little bit. Like, maybe we would learn that the transition wasn't just like part of like filmmaking. Maybe it was we were looking through the eyes of someone at the hand or something like that. Or, you know, sometimes in like Game of Thrones, someone possesses like a crow and you're like looking through the eyes of a crow. So I was like, oh, maybe something like crazy like that's going on. But no, it was just kind of like a transition.
But I tell you what, one of the, like, overall, the story-wise, I don't know about you, but I think it had a really good start and then kind of a very weak ending. To put it very weakly. Sigourney Weaver, I was very impressed. I noticed that her character never gets mad throughout the whole show. I don't know if you ever noticed that she didn't lose her temper until the very end, and then she gets stabbed like the moment she loses her temper, which I thought was a very interesting character choice. So I definitely appreciate that, but the fact she was killed, was it the second to last episode? No, the six end of episode 6, because that's where my wife went to bed and I watched 7 and 8 while she was asleep. But she's killed at the very end of 7, which changes the dynamic from Sigourney Weaver's Alexandra being the villain to Elektra again, which I kind of felt like a little bit like Daredevil season 2, which the showrunners for the show were from Daredevil season 2.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Elektra taking over the hand, that is part of a comic book arc, I believe, right?
I don't know. I don't read a lot into Elektra. I don't find her very fascinating, all in all.
Yeah, I think at some point she does take over the hand. Obviously, it's comic book, so it's all temporary. I'm sure at some point it reverts back to somebody. But so I'm sure they were probably trying to hit one of those story points there. But yeah, it like this show kind of ebbed and flowed between all of these different characters, and it never really kind of felt like its own unique style. Like when me and my wife were watching the very first episode, we almost thought that episode was directed by 4 different people. It almost felt like, okay, you direct the Daredevil parts, you know, I'll direct the Iron Fist parts, and we'll kind of like put them all together. And I know visually it was kind of supposed to look like that, but it also felt like, okay, all these Iron Fist segments are horrible and they suck. Every time Jessica Jones pops up, it's poppy and fun, and the dialogue's exciting. I like seeing Charlie Cox again because he's my favorite character, and Luke Cage, of course, is like having sex with every woman he comes across on screen. I was waiting,
pretty much.
I was waiting for one point in the show where all of those women would be in one room with Luke Cage, and he would just kind of like realize, oh, everyone in this room I've slept with. That never happened, but they were close. They were all in the police station together at one point in time, but they never quite made the realization that they all slept with each other.
I do have to say, of the characters, I think I've seen a lot of this online, and I have to agree, Jessica Jones, this made me miss how long it's been since Jessica Jones.
Oh yeah.
I think that's late 2015 is when she did that. So it's been almost 2 years since we saw Jessica Jones. So I'm glad we get to see her back. I'm also glad the Punisher did not show up in this show. I think he might have kind of ruined maybe it a little bit, like since he's just bullets and death everywhere. But when you mention all these characters in the police station, I hated all the B characters. I feel like they didn't do anything the whole time. I'm like, they're there just for FaceTime.
Yeah, and they weren't just there for FaceTime. They were the only stakes that were added to the situation besides, you know, oh, save the city. Like the only thing that was keeping them from kind of just like storming the castle was like, oh, we got to be careful because they might hurt like our friends and family. And I thought it was a little naive to think that they thought that they were safe in the police station. Like, really? Like
that didn't work in Daredevil or Jessica Jones.
Yeah, these hand ninjas like storm any and every building all of the time very effectively, and they can't be killed. So it was a little naive to think that they would just be safe in the police station. So I kind of thought that held them back a little artificially. But yeah, they didn't really do anything. I kind of thought there was parts in the last couple episodes where like Karen Page and Trish at one moment came in and they were kind of looking at this wall of evidence, and I was like, oh, are they going to like break something? Are they going to see some sort of secret? Are they going to see something that no one else has seen? But then while they were looking at there, I was like, well, there's nothing left to look at. We know it. We kind of knew exactly what the heroes needed to do from like the very, very beginning of the season. Which is weird calling this a season because it almost just feels like one really long movie. At the very, very beginning, the hand says that we've run into a physical wall that we can't open, and the inscription says something about Kunlun on it, or maybe something specific
we
about
need the Iron Fist to do this thing.
Yeah, so I think it was really obvious. Like, we came across the wall that we can't break, so we need the Iron Fist. Well, what is the one thing the Iron Fist do? What is the one thing he do? Like, what is the one thing the Iron Fist does? Sorry.
Make bad decisions.
He punches things. So it's just like, obviously he needs to be down there and punch that wall open. So the whole episode, I'm thinking, what is behind this wall? There's got to be something, like, is it like a teleportation wall? Does it take them to Kunlun? Maybe Kunlun has moved, and that's why they couldn't find it in Iron Fist. It has moved somewhere, and this is the new door to Kunlun.
That's what I kept thinking, too. Like, like this is a portal, like a back door into Kunlun that they were looking for, in Iron Fist kind of thing.
Yeah, because they specifically said, "Oh, don't you want to return to your home? Don't you want to return?" But like, no, the reveal was dragon bones, which I guess I will give them points for subtlety, where they never specifically said, "Oh, this is a dragon. We want the dragon bones." They made it a little bit more coy because it was kind of obviously what we were looking at here. But it was just kind of like that comes to the one point in the show that I didn't really like. There wasn't really no surprises. All of this culmination, and nothing's really shocking. There was a reveal that Elektra was alive and working for Sigourney Weaver, but that wasn't really surprising.
I got that right at the beginning when the show opened. Like,
yeah,
she's the first person Iron Fist fights.
Yeah, and we knew it was going to be in there because Elektra was in the trailers, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
so
she's on the artwork and posters as well.
Yeah, so we knew Elektra was going to be in it. I suppose one of the other things besides the dragon bones that I thought was going to be kind of cool was kind of Stick turning bad, or at least I thought he was, because he lit that incense and he made Luke Cage pass out, and he's like, "Oh, I found another way," and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." I really like Stick's character. Is he going bad? Is he gonna go to the hand? Is he a double agent? Is there some sort of long game going here I didn't know? It's like, no, he was just gonna take the easiest way out and just cut Iron Fist's head off. So I was like, oh, and then he died, but I was like, it sucks that Stick died, but like, I guess his purpose is kind of over once the hand is defeated.
I think Stick has kind of been, to use a good reference here, he's like the crutch they kind of leaned on a lot of the times. Like, he was there to give you exposition when no one else didn't know. He's like the Morgan Freeman of the show here. Where he just shows up and spouts things. But I don't think he was going to kill Iron Fist. I think he knocked them both out on purpose. So, like, if she came in and Luke Cage was knocked out, she wouldn't kill him, kind of thing.
Well, the episode after Stick dies opens up with Elektra and Stick talking in the past. They have a very short conversation about how Matt, he's not ready or he's not willing to join us. And then Elektra said something like, "Oh, well, maybe there's like another way." And I thought like, oh, maybe this is like the long game. Maybe Elektra always meant to die and be resurrected and infiltrate the hand, and she's actually a good guy. But that wasn't it either. So there wasn't really anything sophisticated going on in this story. Like, I'm not saying, like, the writers need to have monocles on and, like, need to be doing some sort of, like, crazy, like alternate dimension, like, but there was nothing really...
There's a lot of things they could have done that would have knocked everyone's socks off, but they played it very safe. It's kind of what you were saying and how I feel as well.
Yeah, it felt like they're like, okay, well, we got these 4 characters from 3 successful shows. It almost felt like, it just writes itself. We don't really need to do anything too crazy. And then no one thought Daredevil was going to be dead. They announced his 3rd season. We knew he wasn't going anywhere. And then all of a sudden he is alive, and it looks like he's probably being cared for by his mother, who is a nun.
Sister Margaret, who she left the family to go in that because she was like a violent person or something like that.
Yeah. So I suppose the mystery of the next season of Daredevil will be, how did he get out of that hole? So maybe there actually is some sort of portal down there.
I think he was with the bones which give eternal life. I think maybe something in the bones brought him back. He is now part of this resurrection because he's been resurrected in the comics as well. Like, that's part of him.
Yeah, do you think he like munched on some bone just before like a girder fell on him? Like, oh shit, I'm gonna eat this dragon bone, see what happens.
No, I don't think so. I think, you know, if he got, I don't know what happened, but I think it's gonna have to do with this return to life kind of thing, because there's a comic series called Born Again, written by Frank Miller and drawn by David Mazzucchelli, which has to deal with Matt Murdock and Daredevil's identity being sold to the Kingpin. And last time we saw Kingpin, he said, I'm going to find you and I'm going to ruin your life, kind of thing. So I think this is setting up, like, it has to deal with finding his mother in there. It has to deal with Karen's past coming to haunt her and, you know, dealing with Kingpin's return. And he also fights Nuke in that one, who we know is still alive from Jessica Jones. So I think there's a big setup for Daredevil Season 3 being this Born Again series.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially since one of the bigger points of Daredevil's character in this season was, hey, your alternate identity, your persona, and your real life are getting dangerously close, and they're about to clash, and everyone's about to find out. And even Karen Page said at the very end of the season, I can't write about this story because people are going to make the connection of lawyer goes missing, Devil in Hell's Kitchen goes missing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
which I don't agree with, because the devil gave himself up months ago, and everyone said that. So, like,
but he did return momentarily, so I don't know.
But nobody, it wasn't like a public return. It was just like he fought these hand ninjas in a warehouse in a Chinese restaurant, and that was about it. I tell you what did work for me, and I know you are probably way harder on Iron Fist than I am, but Iron Fist fighting this time, I had a really good time with him, like, coming in and being confident of himself. I guess he made some piss poor decisions. He's dumb as hell. He's the rich white kid of the group, but by the end, I think we've seen a transition from that to Danny Rand, who is like Batman on the rooftops with his glowing hand. I don't know, but he did have some really good fight scenes in this one.
Yeah, that character just needs some sort of ridiculous overhaul, because I still don't think his character was effective in this show at all, but they found ways to make it a little bit better. I loved watching him get beat up by all of the Defenders. Watching like Luke Cage throw him around was so satisfying. Watching Daredevil and Jessica Jones like beat him up alongside of Luke Cage was really, really great. So I love seeing him kind of get his comeuppance. I really like that. And like you said, the fighting choreography was better. So it was a little bit more impressive watching him like flip around and do stuff, but I could never take anything he said seriously. I don't know if we were supposed to feel really impressed when he finally went into that white boardroom and started talking down to him. He's like, I'm going to need to be a grown-up and put on a tie and like and be really mean to them. I was like, we were supposed to be impressed the whole time. I was just like, what are you doing, you dumb kid? Like, you just like walked in there, like no one's going to take you seriously.
I think that's what it is. No one's taking him seriously. Like, he thinks he knows everything, and then he finds himself in a situation where, like, no, he doesn't have all the pieces. As the audience, we're in that regard as well. We're like, no, you idiot! Like, you don't know it all. You can't do it by yourself. And coming together, I really enjoyed, like, you know, as you said, they were gonna milk that hallway fight scene a lot, and I actually enjoyed that. Like, they didn't come there together. That was actually where they first met up, and I really enjoyed that. But my thing is, Jessica Jones, how strong is she? I can't tell. Like, her power wavers back and forth. Like, sometimes she can carry people, sometimes she just like taps them and they fall down, kind of thing. Like, yeah, I don't know what her power set is like in this. It seems to flux a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's one of the broader problems that we have in this Netflix universe is nothing is really explained, and I feel like it's in some ways to like protect like the non-powered heroes almost, or because it's like, oh, we don't want to confuse them and we don't want the humans to be too flustered by all of this exposition of how these powers work, but at the same time it means the audience doesn't know either. Like, I do not know the rules behind this Iron Fist still. I know it's kind of almost like it feels like a battery that you have to charge with chi, so sometimes he uses it in a punch, sometimes he just gets one blast out of it, sometimes he can hold on to it for a while, but there's no really telling what he actually does with it. I tried to recall from the first season of Iron Fist, how many times he actually used it. I don't think he ever really used it to fight anybody. I think he may have like punched objects with it or maybe destroyed weapons with it, but I never really saw him punch a human with it. So the only people he's really punched is Luke Cage, which obviously he's unstoppable, so it's kind of hard to judge what exactly that fist is doing.
That was pretty cool, though.
And then he just kind of like punched. Didn't he like punch the air in the last episode and made everybody like fall down or something? Then he started a boombox and some sort of hip hop music started playing.
I don't know. It is very confusing. He can break blades with it, which he broke Elektra's blade as she was going to kill Daredevil. But he can also. It seems like he can kind of do like a concussive blast or something. I don't know either. There's a lot of rules about a lot of these characters. They really haven't set in stone yet. And I think we're going to probably get more as we go, but hopefully, despite the fact we now have met all of the 5 fingers of the hand, that we don't get the hand anymore. Like, give us something new, man. Like, I don't think Gao, I don't think she's dead either.
She slinked away.
She slinked away. She was always snaking up to one side or the other. The other ones did die. Finally, I think, what was it? We got to see Misty Knight lose her arm finally, like she had in the comics, fighting, what was it, Bakuto, which I actually enjoyed him a little bit. He was an interesting finger of the hand compared to the other people.
Yeah, he was a douche. I hated him. Everything he said, he had this like kind of inflection to his voice. I was like, I don't know if this is an actor's choice to have this weird cadence the way he speaks, but I was just like, just cut this dude's head off.
Exactly. Like, I don't love him, but like he was definitely much more different than just some, Asian cultured inspired person coming and talking in like Asian prophecies and stuff like that. Like he was just like, like he's a bully. He was a bully growing up. You could tell he's a jerk.
Misty Knight losing her hand or arm, or I guess it depends. Where does the hand stop and the arm begin? Was a little jarring, only because obviously not everybody knows the origin that she does lose her hand, and like is it Tony Stark that gives her a robot hand?
Yeah, in the comics she loses her arm and something else, and she gets a robot arm. But I think in this one it seems like Iron Fist will be giving her.
Yeah, like Rand Enterprises is gonna like,
because he owns the hospital, which is a very advanced hospital.
Yeah, it didn't look very advanced from that one room that we saw. It probably would have been better if it looked a little bit more high tech, and she would have been like, "Oh, where am I? This is a fancy place."
You see how good she looked after getting her arm cut off? Like, someone was doing her hair in there. They were making sure she still looked okay after losing the whole arm.
Yeah, my wife thought this when she lost her arm, it was a little jarring. She was like, "Oh, so she just lost her arm." And I was like, "Well, yeah, it makes a little bit more sense when you know that she loses it in the comic books, because like not a lot of people are getting their limbs chopped off in the show. Then all of a sudden, this one cop who just is kind of a thorn in their side just shows up to like fire a couple bullets and loses her arm. It is kind of like, whoa, well, that escalated very quickly.
Well, Stick did lose his hand.
That's right, yeah.
To the hand. Ironically,
which that scene was really baller.
Yeah,
I really like the stakes that Stick will go to kind of be a survivor, as he said, because that was really creative. It's just like, okay, I could have expected him to find like a creative way out of those handcuffs with like a blade. I was like, okay, so he stole Elektra's blade. They could have just showed him wedging that in between the handcuffs and breaking them off. But I love that they went for it of cutting his hand off. But could they have maybe not of chose the angles to show his hand at, where it clearly looked like his hand was just bandaged up and like painted with some like red paint? Like there were scenes where you showed him like from the front and from the back, and you could clearly see both hands the exact same length.
Well, it's TV, but yeah, I agree. No, it wasn't. There's not a pin on everything in this one. But I do think what was weird, we did learn about Stick that apparently he was like a disciple of Gao. Because someone said, like, you blinded your disciple, like, at least you don't blind our disciples, kind of thing. So
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, someone told her, one of the other fingers, like, we don't kill him, but you blinded one of them, which I think it was a reference to Stick, meaning like Stick, may not have come from all this, like that some of the Chase may have been disciples of these hand people.
Yeah, and speaking of the hand in general, I did kind of like how their story was fleshed out a little bit more I was really disappointed in how the hand was handled in Iron Fist Season 1 because I believe if you go back to the spoiler cast, I said that they kind of ruined the hand. The hand used to be one very specific entity. It was basically ninjas in Daredevil Season 2, and they had like bows and arrows and swords and stuff, and they were incredibly deadly, and they can come back from the dead. Then Iron Fist Season 2 introduced like these different branches of the hand, but the branch that they introduced was just a weird campus in upstate New York.
Cult, like a younger
which was really confusing.
And university.
Yeah, it was like Han University, and I didn't really like it at all. But in this show, they did flesh it out a little bit more. They're like, okay, each finger on the hand kind of has their own sect that has kind of evolved in a different way, but we all kind of sometimes work together when we're not trying to kill each other. So I did kind of like how we specifically got to see who each finger of the hand was. Obviously, one of the fingers died in Daredevil Season 2, right?
No. One of them is the handler. Well, one of them was supposedly died in Iron Fist, Bakuto. You're thinking of Nobu, he's not a finger of the hand, but he was handled by one. Like he was. One of them.
Okay, very confusing to keep track of this.
Because we saw all 5. Because there's 4 at the table: Alexandra, Gao, Murakama, which is the guy who speaks in I assume Japanese.
Yeah,
and then Bakuto, and then the other one was the man, the white hat. Sawande.
Yeah, that guy was really cool. It was kind of interesting to see how the hand varies. It seemed that they have manipulated the origin of the hand. I believe I read back when Daredevil Season 2 came out that the hand originated, I believe, out of Japan. I think it was like a Japan-centric organization that kind of spread out from there to the different islands of Japan. I'm not 100% sure, but they did not originate from Kunlun, so I think that is a new addition in this story. So that was kind of interesting, but I am sick and tired of watching shows where every episode they talk about Kunlun and we've never seen it. Like if you're not going to have the budget to ever show it to me, stop talking about it, because I need to see it in some sort of fashion. I need some sort of like giant sweeping shot. I don't care how much money it costs you to do this one effect shot where you're just in this amazing, beautiful city, so at least I can get the scale of what the hell you people are talking about.
I think the problem with that, it's one of those, the less we show you, the less we have to explain right away. But at the same time, we've just only gotten 2 seasons in a row of that. Like, I think had we gotten this right after Jessica Jones or Daredevil instead, we might be singing a different tune. But we kind of got what was considered the lowest of the shows right before this one, and then this one. So, we're coming off a little harsh on, but I was very, very much enthralled watching this. Like, I didn't want to stop watching the next episode throughout. Because
I definitely felt incentivized to click play on that next episode.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a struggle, like again like Iron Fist. Like I had to drag myself through it. The second half of Luke Cage, to me, I felt like, oh my god, I have to watch another one of these, where they talk about his brother in like a special suit that can absorb his punches. We've even talked about in Daredevil. There's in the back ends of Daredevil and Jessica Jones, there's filler episodes. This had no fillers, and I feel like everything was used very well. I even think they had to cut some stuff out, judging by how quick some scenes went to the next one. But, all in all, I think for their first outing for a teaming up TV series, which is, unheard of, I think it was a good entry into that, and I was glad to revisit these characters that we hadn't seen in a while. Daredevil, Jessica Jones.
It was it was so nice to see him on screen again.
Yeah, and get back into that and the world that this underground New York kind of thing. And I'm glad they I don't think they mentioned the Avengers once. I don't even think they did. So
yeah, and I'm not, and that almost kind of drives into my head a little bit, because we talk about in our news episodes how kind of the TV world of Marvel is a little at war with the movie version of Marvel, and I feel like maybe they're not mentioning them out of just, oh, let's make this show its own. I feel like they're just like, hey, screw those movie guys, we got our own TV stuff going on here, we don't need to mention them.
Yeah,
they talked about a little bit. I think they might have mentioned the Battle of New York like once, maybe, or maybe I just saw a clipping of it on a wall, but it's still kind of technically there.
But yeah, it's there, but I mean, none of the Avengers or anything like that has happened in New York lately. I think Spider-Man did, but who knows when this took place in regards to Spider-Man's story.
Yeah, especially Sony. Who knows if they're even allowed to intertwine?
Yeah. So well, they do because of Avengers Tower and everything like that. Like it's all there, but like they didn't have to reference anything. It's like we've done this. This is our story. We're building it forward and going from there. So I did have a good time. It makes me want to go back and watch the older series again. Which I think is a testament to it. Like, hey, I need to go catch up on what Daredevil did the first season or two. And learn a little and remember what Stick told him and see what was going on with Jessica Jones and her buddy. I forget his name, Malcolm, who looks like The Weeknd with his haircut.
Yeah, I like that guy.
He cleaned himself up a little bit.
He looks good when he's not on drugs.
He does. So I don't know. We're picking this apart, but I mean that's what we're here for. But I do think that this show is above average, but in the middle of all the Netflix offerings we've gotten so far.
Yeah, I think, in all honesty, it kind of deserves to be picked apart. I think when you kind of build up to a show like this that, like you said, has never happened before, the closest analog is in the Marvel movies when the Avengers come together. So if you have all of these TV shows finally coming together, I suppose maybe some of the crossovers on the CW universe might be... They might have done it first, but I say this was at more of a sophisticated level. I think when something like that finally comes together, you do kind of pick it apart a little bit, and you wonder what they have and haven't done. So I think it didn't quite live up to my expectations. I don't think it was a failure at all. I think the only true failure show that we have is Iron Fist, and hopefully they can find a way to fix that character in the future. I really still like the Daredevil character. I want to see where his next season goes. Sounds like we're going to start out with some mystery of how he survived that big hole, and I like to see him go up against the Kingpin again because he's like one of my favorite Marvel villains. I love Jessica Jones' candor and the way she interacts with characters. I want to see her back on screen being a badass again. She's just a fun character to be in the world with. And Luke Cage, I just love that dude's like charisma, and I like how Luke Cage is always still trying to do the right thing. I felt like he really should have been like the moral center of this group, because even at the very last episode he was just like, no, this is a dumb idea to blow up this freaking building in the middle of New York. Like that's happened before. We've seen buildings fall in the middle of New York, and it's not a good scene overall. So maybe we don't do that. And I liked how even to the very end he stuck to his guns and he was the last holdout. But I guess they got lucky that this building fell into a hole, because I think if it just fell on flat ground, it would have they would have needed more than a 2-block radius for sure. But I guess they lucked out that it just kind of fell down in that hole, and it was just kind of never there.
I think. Well, I mean, they did set it up that this architect who built it was going to blow it up, so he kind of knew what he was doing.
Yeah, but they never really specifically said, like, I know how to blow it up and make it look like it was never even here. You know, that maybe they should have dropped in a line there. I was just kind of expecting a typical building implosion, but then I forgot, like, oh, it is on a hole. But then I was like, but how big is the hole? Is it like funneled? Is it all going to go down to that hole? Does the hole have enough volume to fill a whole building? And sometimes the building looked like a skyscraper. Sometimes it just kind of looked like a condo. Never really got the scale of the building.
Well, again, I'm gonna go back, since they did give us the architect several times with his plans to blow it up. He probably knew what he was doing. So I'm not gonna get too picky about that on like Mike is here. But I do enjoy. I don't know if I enjoy. I do appreciate at the end of the show they set up all the characters for their next journey.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones has opened alias investigations. Iron Fist is watching over, becoming the hero the city needs, or at least, you know, he's not just being a boardroom whiny brat anymore. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, knock on wood. Luke Cage is going back to Harlem to work on Mariah and Shades. And, you know, Daredevil is doing that thing he does where he's all bandaged up for a while, and then he's back to fighting people.
Looks like a Super Saiyan recovering from a fight.
That's right. And he gets stronger every time because of that Saiyan blood. So at the end of the day, again, I recommend the show, but I wouldn't recommend watching it without watching every other show going into it.
Yeah, it'd be weird if you watched it without that.
Every show. Well, I think maybe Jessica Jones doesn't. Jessica Jones and Luke Cage really don't add a whole lot to the mythology, do they? They're just kind of there, and that's happening in their part of town.
Well, I think maybe it'll happen a little differently because, like you said, Nuke might be coming back.
Well,
possibly for Daredevil, so that kind of expands that weird military branch of pills, I guess.
I would say watch all of this, but you don't have to. For some reason, you don't have to watch those shows to know what's happening in this story.
Okay, gotcha.
Because it was all ninjas in hand, and that's Daredevil Iron Fist territory.
Yeah, actually, I would go as far to say just watch the first 2 seasons. This is pointless because I would assume anyone listening to this had seen all this, but I theorize that you could probably just watch the first 2 seasons of Daredevil, and you could probably just read a plot summary of Iron Fist because I don't think anyone should watch Iron Fist. And then I think you'd kind of fill in the gaps of the other characters pretty easily.
Yeah, pretty much. So hopefully the next one focuses more on Jessica and Luke's villains, more street-level villains than these mystical, magical ninjas. So, also, lastly, the Stan Lee cameo. I didn't see it when I watched the show.
I saw it.
I had to go back and look it up. But definitely when Daredevil's walking down the street tailing Jessica Jones, who then disappears, and then it's behind him, and then he runs away, but he doesn't hear her behind him because she walks like she's wearing those big boots. She was loud.
I think she was like walking in sync with somebody else that was walking.
Yeah. Either way, that was a weird scene to me. I'm like, no, Daredevil would know. Like, he can hear this bomb timer go off hundreds of stories up in somewhere else, but he can't find the boots.
Yeah, I think that kind of harkens back to we don't really understand the power super well, because I was like, I don't think I leaned over to my wife and I was like, I don't think he can hear that beeping for as far down as his hole is supposed to be.
Yeah. So either way, Stan Lee cameo was there, and that was really about it. So
yeah, he was on like a placard, like a poster.
Yeah,
on
behind
the side of the thing,
Daredevil when he's walking down the street trailing Jessica Jones. So, all right, well that's it for our Defenders thing. We're gonna get on to our regular episode, the Superhero Slate news show. But that's our spoiler cast. Where can people find you, Mike, if they want to know about more what you're watching and doing and stuff like that?
Well, they can follow me at Mike Royer Design on Twitter and Instagram, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to keep up with you, see what pop vinyls you're buying, where can they follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at Valdan, Valdan, and I'll post it on there. You can also read articles on Comic UI, listen to my other show, Filmside Chats, or watch my videos for the DNN on YouTube. So get me there. If people want to know more about Superhero Slate, we do more than just spoiler casts. Where can people find us at?
Well, as always, please visit superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we host the show and to get our show notes. So if you're listening to one of our news episodes and we talk about a cool link to an image or a trailer, you can get that link right in our show notes. So you can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Tumblr. You can get us right in your email inbox every week, and you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to pick up any merch for Superhero Slate and support the show, you can find that at superheroslate.com/store. We got shirts, mugs, hoodies, baseball tees, whatever you can slap a logo on, we got it. Cool. If you are a fan of the show, please consider leaving us a review wherever you listen to the show. That's super helpful. We really like that. And if you want to be a super fan of Superhero Slate, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week. And this week, we're here twice.
Yes, this time twice. 2 times. 1, 2. I think our next spoiler cast will be Kingsman next month.
Yeah, Kingsman.
So not a Marvel property, but we'll get there. And then our next Marvel spoiler cast will be Thor, I believe. So
looking forward to that one, man.
Or Punisher. I don't know which one comes first in November.
Oh, yeah, maybe. We'll see.
So we'll play it by ear. But I guess until then, we'll see you guys next time.
All right, bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
You occasionally spout some words of wisdom and or at least humor.
I'm spouting something over here.